Hello everyone, welcome back to Eat Sleep Free. So today I'm going to be covering a topic that a lot of people are always asking me about. It's actually a part of my tank that is really kind of a centerpiece of my tank. And the funny part is how it became this wasn't really planned at all. I guess it's really funny in life how some of the best things in life are really never even planned. And kind of where I'm going with that is my Zoa garden. So my Zoa garden, you guys can see here on the kind of bottom left, it's an overhang I designed in the aquascape. But like I said, from day one, it was never really supposed to be what it has become. It was really just an accident, something that just happened. I happened to place some corals, it happened to work out, and just started building off that. So one of the things that really helped me get it to where it is I don't know if you guys remember, but a good friend of mine was getting out of the hobby, and he literally told me, hey, come pick up every single coral I have in the tank, of which a lot of those were zoas. So that really helped kickstart kind of what, this garden. Remember, even before that, I had already had the Sunny D's. You guys can see them here. They're kind of the bright yellow ones. I had those in there. I believe I had the 8 can right below it. And not much else. Everything else was pretty much, from his tank, and they've been doing great. So people are always asking me, how do I get a Zoa garden as beautiful as yours? What's the best way to start it? Is it better starting off with a few polyps, bigger colonies? What should I do? And I really wanted to cover that in this video and really kind of show you guys that it's not as hard as it looks. Although my Zoa garden may look like it's very intricate, there was a lot of work that went into it. There really wasn't much work that went into it at all other than placing corals. So to cover one of the first questions is how to start this, how to get this thriving, how to really get zoas to look as colorful as they do in my tank. And one of the first things you guys got to make sure you have in your tank is stability. None of this is going to be able to be achieved if your tank is not stable, if they're not consistent parameters. So that's the first thing you want to do. Second, obviously, is going to be lighting. Your lighting has to be to par. Although a good thing about zoas is they're not too picky with lighting. They are not high demand lighting corals. Although they'll take a good amount of light, is what I've found out. But yeah, they don't need crazy amount of light. Another thing that's really helped kickstart my Zoa garden in particular has been polyp lap reefroids. This stuff, I feed it 2 times a week. Not only does it enhance the color, but I notice the polyps get really big. I don't know if you guys can notice, but any species of zoas that are in my garden, or in my tank for that case, you're going to notice they're huge polyps. Even some of them that, when I got them from the store, the polyps weren't that big. As soon as I threw them in my tank, within about a month, the polyps are just really big. Some of these polyps are even bigger than some of my A cans. So it's really neat to see. Another thing is I want to cover flow. Although zoas don't need too much flow, I notice they do pretty good with medium flow. That's probably obviously because they get a little bit more particles. They like to feed on the water column. And that's another thing. Zoas are not a very hard coral to keep because they kind of like dirty water. They like free floating stuff in the water that they can grab, that they can eat, and that really helps them take off and start thriving. So before you get started, before you think of planning to do this, make sure your tank has stability. As far as lighting, you don't got to go too crazy. An AI Prime will grow these no problem. Ocean Revives, stuff like that. You shouldn't have any issue with them. Make sure you're feeding them. Polyp lab reefroids is what I recommend. It'll get you the best color, the quickest growth, and overall just amazing results. So once you got that taken care of, once everything is in check, the next thing to kind of cover is a question I get asked, which I already mentioned, is how many polyps, how big should the colonies be that I start? And that question is really going to depend on you and what your budget looks like, your wallet. Obviously, the more polyps you get in a colony, the more expensive they're going to be, obviously for the more expensive corals. So that really depends on your pocket. That being said, if you're able to afford and get bigger colonies, you're going to get these results sooner rather than later. So Typically, I'd probably recommend, you know, if you get frag plugs, try it for them to have anywhere from 5 to 10. It's going to speed everything up a little bit. If you can get more than that, great. But another thing, try to get all the, let's say once you decide where you're going to have your Zoa garden, try to make sure it's not near any Euphyllia, any type of corals that may sting it. And that's another thing I'm going to cover here shortly. But yeah, try to not get them close to Euphyllia. Try to not get them close to anemones. Anything of that sort that has sweeper tentacles, because of course they're going to get stung, they're going to die, and they don't do very good with, you know, aggressive corals like that. So make sure you have a location where they're going to be, where they have at least, you know, let's say you get the 1.5 inch, 2 inch frag plugs. Give the frag plug you know, try and give it a diameter of free space of at least 1/2 inch to 1 inch around the plug, because trust me, within 6 months they're going to take over that and they're going to be really beautiful, really happy. So try to not cram them in too much. Once obviously you decide where you want to put your colonies. Another thing is, like I said, you don't want to go too crazy. If you can get 5, 10 polyps on a plug within 6 months, you'll be able to see really good results, and you're going to be very happy with kind of what you've achieved. So another thing I wanted to cover, and I briefly mentioned, is what type of corals you can mix with zoas. Accidentally, I put an acan, as you guys can see here in my garden, and surprisingly they get along very, very well. They don't sting each other. When the acan has its little feeding tentacles, it does nothing to the zoas. You can see here they're growing within each other. It's really interesting to watch. I also have tried this just to make sure it's not just species specific as far as acan and zoas. I've tried this here on the right side of my scape. You guys can also look, and the same results. There's different colonies of acans, different colonies of zoas without any issues. So I can tell you guys for a fact that you can absolutely mix acans in your zoa garden. I think they add a little bit of interesting color, interesting texture. It's a good splash of both, I believe. So if it's something that you'd like to mix up, absolutely you can do it. I've done it with great results, and it's been fairly simple. So another nice and interesting thing of when you're creating your zoa garden, try to not glue them, or how should I say this? Try to not put too much glue on the frag plug. The reason I say that, believe it or not, half of the colonies you see here in front of you aren't even glued. They're just, the frag plug is just on the rock. I can literally pick up the plug and move it wherever I want. And kind of where I'm going with that, zoas will morph different colors depending on your tank parameters, depending on your lighting, depending on how you feed them. So all those different things are going to sometimes change or morph the color of your zoas. That being said, you know, 6 months, a year from now, 2 colors may not look as good as you wanted to, or you want a different splash of color here or there. So that's a reason I haven't kind of permanently glue these down. I can always grab the plug, move it, you know, what have you. Another nice thing about the way I do it is anytime the colony ends up getting too big, I can take it out, frag it, sell some, get some money back, and that allows me to trim my colonies and kind of keep them at bay, if you will. You know, and kind of the main reason I did it, I knew I was going to be upgrading the tank in the near future. So last thing I would hate is to pretty much lose all those or have to break the rock, or, you know, whatever the case is. This way I'm able to literally grab the plugs again, take them off, and just plant them in a whole different tank. And really makes it simple to obviously relocate them or move them, or, you know, whatever the case is, if ever I have to start up a new tank. So all that being said, you guys can see that it's not very difficult to start your own zoa garden. It's very simple. I think the hardest thing about it is getting the money to buy these more exotic color zoas. That's going to be probably the hardest part. You know, and I think the next hardest part is going to be waiting for them to grow, because obviously once you get to the more expensive ones, they get pretty pricey per polyp, sometimes 50, 60, 100 bucks a polyp. So it can get very difficult to get 5 polyps on a frag plug. But I've had very different species of zoas, and I still do here in my tank, And I've noticed on average, they grow very, very, very fast. The main key point with ZOAs, anytime you introduce a different ZOA into your tank, give it at least 2 months before you really start seeing it blow up. And by blow up, I mean really taking off with growth. So don't, put a ZOA in there and within 2-3 weeks saying, hey, there's nothing happening. You guys got to remember, anytime we mess with corals of any sort, it takes them, a few weeks to a month to really get comfortable and start growing. But that being said, I think this is very easy to be replicated. Unlike SPS coral, I really think anyone can have a garden like I do. All it really takes is patience and the money to go get the individual ZOAs, especially, like I said, the more expensive color ones. But I think we're going to wrap this video up here, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's something I didn't cover, or if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down in the comment box below. I hope I was able to bring over some useful information, especially for your newer reefers out there. And we're going to wrap this video up here, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys aren't subscribed to my channel, please be sure to subscribe. I hope at least with this video I've been able to earn your subscription. And share this video, guys. I'm pretty sure a lot of your buddies out there will like to check this out. Maybe they can get something useful from it. So I really appreciate you guys sharing it. And yeah, guys, be sure to check me out on Instagram. I got a great giveaway going on right now for an AI Prime Light. You guys don't want to miss out. I'm going to have a link to all that in the description below. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Happy reefing.